Okay, I think now we are live. Second time is the charm. Today we have an exciting guest. He's the most handsome guest on the show. People like him more than me. It's Israel Ironstein. He's a long-time business coach and consultant. And today he's going to actually, and today he's going to talk to us about the SCARF method for building rapport and leadership. And he is going to take it from here, and then we'll have a back and forth, a little bit of a role play to see how it can be relevant for sales, for leadership. And maybe with, I guess, since I gave you a kind of a small introduction, maybe you can spend 30 seconds to just introduce yourself to our viewers so that they know, have a little context.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. Always great to be on your show. I love the type of information and the people who are in your show. And it's a great feeling. My name is Israel Ironstein. I am a coach and consultant. I'm a certified professional coach by New York University. For many years, I've been coaching. I started in 2008, but over the last several years, I've been focused on business consulting using coaching methods. So the coaching methods are mostly things that I don't bring the content into. I don't tell you what to do, but I help get it out of you and help sort it out and organize it and add some accountability and structure. And that's pretty much what I do in a very short version of it.
Okay, cool. That's a great introduction. Let's dive right in because you surprised me where I thought, oh, I know all the acronyms. I know all these things like, goals and whatever, like goal setting. Um, but you threw a new one at me, the SCARF leadership method. Tell us or me a little bit about that.
S.C.A.R.F model, I saw that it's being referred to, I think, David, what's his last name? Rock? Dr. David Rock. He has a few books. I think one of his books is actually very famous. I think it's called Quiet Leadership. And he has a book called Your Brain at Work. So it's famous. And I heard that this acronym is attributed to him. So before we go into the acronym, what are we trying to do? What's the problem and that we want the solution? We are, as human beings, we are mammals, we are in this world, and a lot of things neurologically, psychologically, neurologically trades down to how we were 100, thousands, maybe even millions of years ago. So at the end of the day, we are, as human beings, we're fight or flight, sometimes freeze, but for the most part, fight or flight. And why is that different? Why do we need to know where we're at and why it makes a big difference? So if you look at the way the brain works and the way the body reacts, if you're on fight, you get tightened up because now you need to be focused. And when you get tightened up, everything gets closed. But that affects your open-mindedness to listen, your open-mindedness to accept maybe it's ideas, maybe it's constructive criticism, maybe it's some insight, but you're closed because your body is closed, your brain is closed, and it's also closed for creativity. So when somebody is really fight or flight and you say, what can be like another idea of how do we can solve this problem? It's like, no, I'm scared. I go down to the basic. When somebody is they're not threatened. So, right, when you're threatened, you have the fight or flight. But when you're not threatened, when you come, you're in the garden, there's nothing around you. Now you're relaxed. Now your body language is relaxed, your brain is relaxed, and now you're in an open state. And when you're in an open state, you can listen, you are open to accepting ideas, and you are a lot more creative. So it's very important when you talk to someone, especially if you want to make any kind of influence on that person, whether it's in a work environment or you're trying to sell something, or even something like coaching or something like having a real conversation. You want to know what state the other person is. And if you want to accomplish something, you probably want that person to be in an open state versus a closed state. This is where David Rock's acronym comes in. How do you know if somebody is in open state or closed state? There is 5 aspects of how the person feels that will determine if they're open or closed. I'm going to give you the acronym and then we can go through them one by one. So the acronym is SCARF, similar to something you put on yourself when it's cold outside in the winter. SCARF, SCARF. So what does SCARF stand for? I'm just going to give you all the 5 and then we can go one by one into each one of them. S stands for status. C is for certainty. A, autonomy. R, relatedness. And F for fairness. So that's the whole picture. Now we can go one by one into what is each one and what makes it important, and also how to apply it in real life. S is status. When you look at the core things that will make people feel either threatened, where they have to like close or open, is if their status is at a place where they feel comfortable, or if they feel the status is being threatened or is already attacked or impacted. So if you try to speak with someone and they feel they're being lowered status than what they're supposed to be, I come in and let's just say I am the owner of the company. You talk to me as if I'm not even a decision maker. I'm going to feel like somebody just hurt my status and it's closed. It's like it's not going to go anywhere because I don't want to listen. If somebody interviews for a certain job, we just had it with one of the companies I consult with, and they want people to start by doing cold calls. So I said, that's okay, but don't call them callers because these people come with a lot of experience. You want them to do the calls because we need them to go through that experience for a short period of time, but they see themselves as account representatives. So if you tell them, oh, we need you to be a caller, the status is going to get affected. They'll be like, nah, that's not me. So you're going to be an account representative with us. We're going to start by having you call people. So you got to get familiar with the process because we have other callers who do it. But we want you to know what they're going through. And after a few weeks, you'll get the account directly. So the status of the person can be impacted in many different ways. And it's important to be aware. What is the good status is giving the people their place, giving their respect. People have a lot of value, their own self-value, into different categories in their own mind. So that's why it's very important not to put somebody in a box that maybe they don't like that box, because that hurts their status. I'm not just this, I am that. So obviously, if you bring somebody up, they're going to feel more relaxed, more open, and they will listen to you more. Second one, C is certainty. The less we know, the more we're nervous. So if I talk right now and I don't know how long this conversation is going to take, something in the back of my mind, I'm not sure. And I'm not relaxed. But if somebody tells me, hey, this is going to take about 20 minutes and this is what we're going to do. The first 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you a little about myself. Then for the next 5 minutes, you tell me about yourself. And then for the other 10 minutes, we can talk about what we can do to help each other. Okay, I got it. So certainty comes in many ways, shapes, or forms, but it's important to be aware in the conversation you talk about to give people context in order for them to feel. It's not even to have certainty. It's to feel the feeling of certainty, the feeling of, I know what's going on. I know what's happening. The less they know, the more they're scared. If they're scared, they're closed and they're not listening, they're not opening up. So certainty. A, actually surprising to a lot of people, and it's autonomy. People want to feel that they have control over themselves, that they make decisions, that nobody controls them. So in reality, sometimes people have to be told certain things. In reality, certain things have to be a certain way, but the feeling has to be a feeling of autonomy. We're going to show you the ways this can be done and why we always recommend doing it this way because we found it to be the best way. I'm sure you're going to love it and you're going to do it the same way. Same thing that like telling you, hey, this is how you do it, but it opens up the person. Autonomy is something also the other way around, to give people accountability, both for things that will happen and for things that has already happened. This is what you've done, so I want to make sure that you're aware of it and stuff like that. It could feel sometimes confrontational, but people love autonomy. This is my domain, this is what I did, and to good or to bad. So autonomy, when somebody feels like they're not in control, again, it's kind of also sometimes relates to certainty, because if I'm not in control, I don't know what's happening. But it's another level above that. It's like it's my life. It's some I think it's like my life, my choices. It's like some of it is like, yes, that's me. So it's important to be aware when you talk to someone, to make them feel, and hopefully you make the reality the same way, that they are responsible for their own action, they're responsible for their own decisions, and they're doing it their way. R is relatedness. Relatedness, usually if you're going to talk to that person, the person wants to feel that they're related to you, that there's something in common, that you get them, that it's not something that's nothing to do with them. So and relatedness is one of those interesting ones, because we're talking about black and white, on and off, open or closed. Is the person relaxed and open and listening and creative, or is the person closed down? And relatedness is actually a lot more of a spectrum. Like you can relate to somebody a lot or relate less, but it's still something that the person has to feel that there's something here that you both connect on. There's something here that the person could relate to what you're trying to do. If they feel the disconnect, then they close off. So relatedness, and you will sense it if you talk to the person. Sometimes these things happen if you're people say like out of touch, and people feel like you're out of touch with reality, or you're out of touch with my reality. That's when they lose the relatedness and they just close off. Like you don't get it. So you have to be both informed about the other person's reality and also show it. There's plenty of stories of people who lost major deals over something that's relatively stupid, because they just didn't know something that the other person felt like you should have known about my culture. So that's the relatedness. Because if you think about it from the outside, you're like, what is the difference? We have a big business to do. It's going to help everybody. So what if I didn't know that in your culture you say good morning at night and good night in the morning? That's not affecting any of the business. But people get really offended by that. But it's not the offensive. It's they feel I'm not relating to you. Like you didn't do enough to find out my culture. You're not really invested, and it's kind of I feel maybe you're fake, and maybe this whole thing is fake. Something very core, similar to status, certainty, autonomy, is relatedness. And the last thing is fairness. The easiest to explain because everyone understands. This is researchers have shown that even chimpanzees, if and some people could see it with their dogs. You give them something, they'll be very happy. But if you give the other one more, now they're going to get upset. But what do you care? You got the same amount. Fairness is something rooted so deeply in our brain that if we feel that we've been treated unfair, we close off. We get mad, we get upset. It doesn't matter. You come into this room right now and you offer me $1 million. I will be so happy and I will say thank you. But if you immediately go to the next person, there's no one here in this room right now. But if there was somebody, you'd be like, you get 2 million. I will feel like shit. But have you ever heard of a person that got $1 million out of nowhere and feels like shit? There you go. Now you know what fairness and why fairness is important. So if you have a client and you say, hey, if you're 5 minutes late, I'm going to charge you for the whole session. And then you show up to the session 5 minutes late and you don't credit them for the session, they're going to feel like it's not fair. And there's a lot of examples for that. So the thing about S.C.A.R.F, when I've learned it during my course at NYU with the coaching course, I really loved it. I connected with it. I felt like it was one of the biggest pivotal moments over there. And it was a big aha moment for me. And sometimes with my clients, especially with Different leadership positions, people have some issues with leadership, and they have some issues with coworkers, or whether it's bosses or people who report to them. When I open up the scarf, it's actually very helpful. Many of my clients say that before a tough conversation, they take out that picture with the scarf. They look at it and they're like, I need to remember that and that. It's like and some people have it hanging on their desk, like just to always be there. I feel like it's such a uh, I feel like it's disproportionate, the amount of effort you need to do versus the reward you get for it. That's why I love scarf so much.
Yeah, I really like Scarf. The more you explained it, the more I was nodding inside my head, going, "Uh-huh, yes, I like this. Yes, I can see this. Yes, yes." And I'm surprised it isn't a household name because it hits on so many, I want to say little points, but only because there are so many, but they're actually quite major points of contention very usually, like feeling respected, feeling fairness, and that so much of that is goes to how you feel about the overall situation, and how much you feel, how well you feel about the overall situation will dictate how, how you'll collaborate, and the level in which your participation and all this, and your how agreeable you'll be, and so on. So I can see it's fantastic for leadership, and it's also so simple. It's just like a perfect, and I usually don't love, these blueprints, or here's the 5-step formula, but this is like a really great architecture or blueprint for how to handle so many situations. And yeah, I really love it. I was originally going to do some kind of sales based role play with you, sort, so we can kind of play around with it, but it almost, now that I understand it more and more, I feel like it's so much more of a leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. um do you have examples of where somebody was failing um at some facet of leadership, and then somehow learned about the scarf method, and how that transformed um their work, or their business, or
Actually, do one of my clients was a manager and is very technical and is an expert. And uh, one of the things that happened is someone new joined the team. There's a big team of a bunch of people, and someone new joined. And this is one of those things where the team has been training this new person. And the manager was talking about how amazing this new person is, and how and used some kind of language. I think it was um, leading the pack or something similar to that. And it got back to me that the team felt like we're putting in our sweat, blood, and tears to make sure this person is successful. Oh, I think it was like ahead of the pack. That was the term that was used. Now, this manager just meant to just build the person up. Person is new. I want them to know it's a big office meeting. Let me make that person feel like part of the team. But they didn't think of status. They didn't think that, but by using these specific word, this person's already ahead of the pack. And people are like, what do you mean by they're already ahead of the pack? This person is new. We taught them everything. And it really created an issue. And what happens is with these things is it's not a one-time thing. When you hear it one time, you realize that it happens all the time. And then when we dug deeper, we realized that it was hitting on many of the scarf things. It was a lot of lacking of autonomy. This is how you do it in situations where just let them be. Just it's a great team. They're getting things done. Yes, you are the experts. Yes, you can do it better. But most of the things that you keep coming in and making sure that this is how it's done, would have done that way anyway. And sometimes it's good to let them fail. We've had a situation that escalated with clients, and I insisted that this manager stay out of it. And it became a mess, but they dealt with it. The team realized that they made a mess with the client. it exploded, and the manager stayed out. And when it worked itself out much better because the team found their way to overcome it and make their relationship with the client even better after that. Whereas in the past, it would never allow that to happen. So that the autonomy, they never got that. So they always felt very small. And what happens is they weren't really happy. They weren't really open and they weren't really creative. Because when you don't feel like you're just like a zombie walking. So this is example, and there's actually a few more examples. And we talked about S.C.A.R.F. We hung S.C.A.R.F. right on the table, and this manager shared with me that they're actually looking at it before they make calls, before they send emails. Happens to be in personal life as well. They had a whole issue, and they said, I took S.C.A.R.F. and I used it. They have a place where they volunteer, and there's always, it's people. There's always drama when there's people, right? So there was a big drama, even though everybody volunteers and everybody just tries to make the good thing. And this person shared with me that S.C.A.R.F. was like the way that they've used to get out of the situation, and everyone is happy. And one of the things about what's interesting about S.C.A.R.F. that we are talking about it when you talk to someone, how to make that person feel a certain way because you want them to be open and accepting. But these two other things to use S.C.A.R.F. One is to identify what the other person is feeling that's not you're even doing. So when somebody comes over and talks and they feel that they're not being treated fairly, not by you, but by their situation. So again, this is a leadership. Somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm not happy because I'm not getting paid enough. But really, when you talk to them, the problem is not that they're not getting paid enough. The problem is that somebody else that they think is just as good as them is getting paid more. So, and these examples could go on now with status, with autonomy, it's with certainty. So, if that person is not certain because they're not sure, where they're going to live in the next year, and this is something that has nothing to do with you. So, it's important to identify: does that person have something in their own S.C.A.R.F. that is affecting their ability to be open in this particular conversation or this particular time? When I want them to be creative and open and grow. And sometimes it's okay if this is not the right time. And sometimes it's okay to bring it up. And maybe there's certain things that you can even affect and improve. But it's important to notice that it's not just what you're doing, but it's also what the other person is experiencing regardless. So that's the second way. But there's also a third way, and that's self identifying. And this is whether you're going into a meeting to think before the meeting, how do I feel? How is my, to do it like a mental check? How is my S.C.A.R.F? How is my status? How is my certainty? And if you're not in a good place, then sometimes just being aware of it can help. And sometimes you find ways to relax that. And sometimes it's nothing to do with meeting. I have a task I want to do, and it's been a few days, and every time I just don't do it. And why is it? And then you find that it's not on my status. I don't feel like I should do it because I feel like this is beneath me, or I feel like it's not fair that I have to do it because the other person didn't have to do it. Or you feel uncertain. It's like, I'm not sure how to do this, and I don't want to get into something I'm not sure. And or autonomy, like I feel like I'm just pushing the button. Somebody else is doing everything, or I have to do it their way, and I don't want to do it their way. I want to do it my way. And or relatedness, you just don't connect with it. Some people find very good ideas that could really help them, but they just don't like it for some reason. If you don't like cars and now you have to drive many hours, you just don't want to do it because you don't relate to the activity. So there's many different ways you can use a S.C.A.R.F. and hopefully add it to your toolbox and use it away. It's like candles. If you pass on from one candle to another, the first one doesn't lose anything. So S.C.A.R.F. is not something that if you use it, you lose it. You can use it and use it and use it and become an expert on it.
That those are really great examples. Actually, I have a question about the status, the S part of of S.C.A.R.F, because to me it seems like sometimes want to talk about someone else and compliment them. Hey, this person is really great, right? Like in your example, it was, that person's ahead of the curve, or and it can sometimes make people who are listening feel like, well, what about me? Do you think they're so much better than me? Am I not adequate? Right? You create this kind of an effect. Am I correct? And if I am correct in that, what is a good way to mitigate in your communication to make sure that you don't offend the people who you're directly talking to if you're um, trying to build up someone else?
First of all, you're correct. This 100% could happen. I'll tell you two things. One is to answer, to not make it relative. So I think the biggest mistake in that example was to use they're ahead of the pack. And now the pack feels like, how is that person ahead? So to not use
Mm,
comparative thing, that person, Pinder, the best person I've ever interviewed. Hey, you interviewed all of us. Or
yeah.
it's like this person has done this, the best I've ever seen. So it's the best, the fastest, ahead, or anything comparative will make the other person. But I want to go a little bit deeper about status more than other things, because one of the core things that we have as human beings that tied up to our own self-esteem and self-worth is who we are. And when you ask people, who are you? I love doing that with my clients. I give them a pen and a blank paper, and I tell them, write like this: I am, and then start writing and keep writing. And it's fascinating how people self identify themselves. But some of identity for some people is much stronger than others. And you'll be surprised. For some person, being a brother is like the most important thing in their life. And you would never guess that. For some people, being a manager, that's where that part of their identity, that's how in their brain they see themselves. And if you take it away from them, you're taking away their soul. You're taking away their self-identity. So status is not just like fairness or like, hey, I'm trying to climb this corporate ladder or whatever. I'm looking in to get that job. It's very often a lot deeper than that. It has to do with self identity, with self worth. You can crash somebody's entire, you know, life by saying, you're not a painter, you just painted a few times, and all of a sudden, boom. So, status is something to be very careful about.
Yeah, we actually have a mutual friend who we won't name them, but they lost their job, and they had a lot of status, self identity kind of tied into their job. They had a pretty good job, and then they fell into a depression. um, and another person would be like, "Oh, that's great, time off, maybe opportunity to learn something new," but they just couldn't because it was so tied to their who they were and how they saw themselves.
So, sometimes being aware of something like that can change how you process it.
Yeah, and I also have an experience similar to what you were describing, because one time somebody was saying about a third person. This is like, I think, 20 years ago now or something, but they were saying something like, "So and so is so smart," and I don't know why, but it kind of felt soul crushing. Like, what about me? What about me? I
Yeah.
didn't say anything. I was like, okay, they're smart. All right. Maybe I'll go read a book. Maybe I'll show you how, I'm
I'm
even more smart. I'll become more smart.
There's a famous story about they say the Pope one time was driving, and obviously he's a passenger as a driver, and they're driving for hours, and the Pope said, I like driving. Can we switch for a little bit? I haven't driven in 20 years. Let me drive for a bit. So the chauffeur, like, Pope asked. So they switch, and the Pope gets on the driving. He hasn't drove in 20 years, goes really, really fast. A policeman stops them because they're really, really fast. The policeman goes out, sees who the driver is, and runs right back, tell them, you guys go. And then the partner says, who was in the car? What happened? And he said, I don't know who was in the car, but the driver was the Pope. So I think if I don't know who that person, but if somebody told you that they're smart, so you are the not smart one, I can only imagine who they were.
Actually, I didn't know that person very well, but I don't know. But it struck me very. deeply because I still talk about it today, and I'm like, it was like an irrelevant situation. I think that person forgot it 3 minutes later.
Right. That's why it's important to be careful.
Yeah.
That is, and
So
especially like you say, like third, you're trying to compliment somebody else, but situational awareness.
so it's interesting because I am looking at the acronym, and for autonomy, um, sometimes in a corporate setting, it's not always easy to give a person full autonomy, especially if they're more or less junior, which you're supposed to make them feel like they have good status, but at the same time, you don't want to yourself be delusional or make them delusional about, hey, um, you know, how do you manage that? So have you had experiences where people wanted to be autonomous, but like you kind of had to, hey, you can't be fully autonomous. It's still a job.
I think that one of the key distinction, and this is about the entire SCARF model, is it's not exactly what's happening. What you want to focus on is how someone is feeling. So if we talk about autonomy, if somebody is first year at a big company and they just came out of school, maybe they even an internship, and they know that they have no idea. So autonomy would probably be the expectations for autonomy would be very low. Just don't tell me like every word by word what to do. Allow me to do something.
Mm,
Okay. Uh, um, Again, if you want me to copy paste something, but at least let me have some choices. I don't know which desk I'm sitting, or what time I'm doing it, or which part I'm doing first. But let me something. So yeah, it's not a wild west world where you just let people do whatever they want, but you want to give them some choices in order for them to feel like they have some control about their action. But it's some, and remember, it's the feeling sometimes. Sometimes I remember when I went to my daughter's high school many years ago, and it was a they were guiding us about finding universities, which college kids are going to go to, what you need to do, where to apply, and blah blah blah. And then one of the parents said, "I'm going to decide where my child is going to school," but they don't know it. They're going to think they decided. So sometimes it's not about
mm.
what's really happening. It's how the person is feeling about it. So if you can get the other person to feel like they made that decision, that is so much more valuable than you telling them what to do.
Yeah, I like that. Especially, I like the incremental um, increase in autonomy, not like stop or go or black and white, but the incremental nature of it that can be really adjusted for the situation. I think that that's really helpful because I see this all the time. I have also much younger children, toddlers, and sometimes I'm like, put on your pants. They're like, no, but okay, do you want pink or yellow? Okay, or whatever color. Okay, I want that one. I chose. So it's really important, even at, yeah, I guess all ages, um, for people to actually feel like they're in charge of the situation and the decision, and then they feel good about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
part of autonomy.
Um, is there any other situations you can think of where this can be applied or you've had experience with this in the real world?
I think that it's pretty much in any situation. I don't want to go into relationships. Obviously, there's something that can really help with personal situations. I think one of the things I mentioned, I'm going to mention it again because I know a lot of your audience are entrepreneurs and people who are doing stuff. And I think to do that self check on the scarf is something that I want to double up on. And I would recommend doing it two ways. One, just a general, hey, how am I feeling? Like imagine you have a mirror, but it's not a glass mirror, it's a mental mirror. How's my scarf? How do I feel about my status? How do I feel about my certainty? And then sometimes you find, oh, this is what's been bothering me. That's why today I got irritated very quickly. I had no patience. I had no, not in a good mood, because I'm not certain about, you know, what, something, whether I'm going to get this business or not, or whether I'm going to get this job or not, or whether something is bothering me. It's like, at least you identify it. And sometimes that could be helpful, because remember, scarf is not about what's happening, it's about your feeling to what's happening. So if uncertainty is there, but you accept it and you feel like this is part of, it's okay, they said they'll let me know within 3 days. I have 3 days. It's not uncertainty, and then, so it's that's one check. So I would recommend doing it every once in a while, especially if you feel like you're not at your best. And the other one is with specific tasks. If there's something that you want to do, something that you want to accomplish, that you feel like you're not getting it done, you're procrastinating. And sometimes it's amazing how sometimes we have a full momentum and a lot of things, and all of a sudden we get into procrastination where we don't do anything. And when we dig deep, it's just one certain step that we don't really want to do for whatever reason, because we don't like it, because we don't think it's fair, because whatever reason, and we just got stuck there. It's like an obstacle, and we don't do anything, and we lose. So it's important to go back and check, what am I really supposed to do? What's stopping me? And then again, cross check it with Scarf. And if you find it, you either fix it, or the awareness of it allows you to overcome it.
Yeah, I really like the second point, the certainty. See, because there's a fact that many people don't quite know, but when they hear it, they're like, it's always like, oh yes, because the thing that a lot of times when people feel stress and anxiety about anything is precisely when they are uncertain, because the way the brain, this is also neuroscience, like you referenced earlier, when the brain doesn't know, it tries to predict, and it's too expensive in terms of energy for the brain to be predicting so many outcomes. But when it knows, okay, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then it's so much easier for the brain, and it doesn't get overwhelmed. And it's night and day. And the difference is just sometimes setting expectations, like you said, which for people you're working with or dealing with, it makes their experience so much more, like, more pleasant. So like you said, it's how they feel. And so it's, yeah, as long as you include people, give them expectations, set their expectations correctly, the details, and make sure they have all the context. I From what I know about stress and stress management and anxiety in people, I think that that goes a long way to actually make people feel, not feel those emotions, and feel good about their standing.
Yeah. And we spoke about the technicalities of Scarf a lot, but I want to go back to the first thing I've said about the benefit of using Scarf. It's when you have someone who is relaxed. Imagine you're in heaven. Everything is peaceful. You have birds chirping. You have fruits. You have grass. You have perfect weather. Now you're not only open, but you get creative. And one of the things, I had a client this week trying to make a very big decision, and one of the things that we started tapping into is there another option that you haven't been considering, that is just something creative, something very different? And it was a new thought, because the person was stuck between, it's this or this, it's this or this. I was like, wait, maybe there's a third option. Just the thought about maybe there's a third option was very interesting. It's like it's like changed the whole way they experienced it. But having the Scarf relax, keep their mind very open, and we were actually able to bring up some ideas. And again, it's not me. I don't bring ideas to the conversation. My clients do. So I ask questions, and they're like, "Wait, it could be like this. It could be like that." You know, maybe I can still get what I really want, but not get it this way. I can get it some, wow. But that type level of solving problems and creating solutions, doesn't come when your scarf is not in an open state. So the keyword here is the state, having an open state.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I also study a lot about creativity, and it's true that, if you can focus on a certain thing, and yeah, it will help you, but it also narrows your scope, and so you want to have that yin yang, right? Sometimes you want to step back and be more relaxed and just be open to ideas and possibilities, and some of them are not all of them are going to work. Some of them are even going to be contradicting, so they can't all work. But um, every once in a while, there's like a great one, but it doesn't happen until you take that step back, which is I honestly sometimes find very hard to do because a lot of times we're like go go go, meeting this deadline, that pressure here, and it's really hard to. By the way, every time I think about every negative thing, like or mental or flaw or mindset flaw, I reference back to when I learned about Bitcoin, when it was like pennies or a dollar, I don't remember, and I wasn't open enough at that time to explore it fully. And it's like I'm like, oh, my life could have been like profoundly different if I had just bought it 10 cents each. Let's get 1,000 of them, um, right? And I just, I wasn't able to take that step back. Was kind of stressed out. There was a lot of uncertainty because at this moment I was like just kind of starting my business, and it was in super struggle mode, and I just could not unglue myself from the focus on the immediate stressors, and I just didn't act on it until like some years later, which was still good, but like not that. And it's like literally the biggest miss of all my entrepreneurship experience ever. And I kick myself so maybe unnecessarily much, but like I relive it. I'm like, oh, it- but it's been a lesson actually, because I'm like, if I'm not able to look at what's coming around the corner, if I'm too focused on something, I'm gonna miss a ton of stuff. So I really like the idea in within Scarf to be able to actually take a step back and look at a bigger picture, because without it, we are so we end up being no matter narrow minded, no matter how we convince ourselves we're not.
It's a little bit of a catch-22. It's you can't really be creative if you are too pressured, but you can't get out of your pressured situation unless you use
Hmm.
creativity. So
It's
it's
so
actually
hard that, yeah, that is one of the hardest things.
one of the things that could help in such situations, and this is a little bit out of scarf, but it's important, is the help from an outside person. The outside person could share the load, could I actually have a client right now that's going through something very, very difficult, and they must work through it. And what I am providing for that person is just taking some of their load, building them up, relaxing them about this will be fine, this will work itself out, don't worry about that. The immediate things, whatever needs to happen in the next few days, will work themselves out. And in this particular case, we found ways to make things work themselves out. But one of the things I actually told one of my clients today is, this is a worry that you know is coming in a few weeks, but it's a little bit overwhelming for you and you're not doing anything about it. The problem is that whatever you're going to do when the time comes, you can do today. The only difference is if you do it today, the next few weeks will be calm and peaceful. But if you wait until then, now for a few weeks, you are in that stress mode and you can't be creative and you can't be productive. And, it's hard to wake up in the morning. I say, see what you need to do in the future. Imagine today is the deadline and do it. And the person says, yeah, but I have something that could happen in a couple of weeks. And if that happened, we have no issue. So I said, okay, fine. Then decide that that's what you're doing. That thing is going to happen in 2 weeks, and that's it. Don't be, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very nervous. And yeah, if that happens, I don't have to do anything. But if it doesn't happen, just decide this is what's happening. Now, if new information comes in but it's not happening, then you'll have that time to worry about it. But don't live this whole time being worried. And that's something with certainty. sometimes the certainty is not important for now, and sometimes the certainty is not important at all. I'm nervous about which car I'm going to get when I rent the car for my vacation because I paid for, Elite, and maybe they're going to give me this. I heard stories. Don't be nervous about it. When you come in, you deal with it. Hopefully, you get a good car. So sometimes we just get caught up into something that's not very important, and we get into the uncertainty mode for no real reason. So that's important to be mindful of.
Right. There are just very few things that really, really require it. And but they can kind of sneak up and feel, a lot of things can feel like.
Yeah, because again, if we talk about the car rental example, nobody cares if they get a Nissan Maxima or Ultima, but status, I'm a good negotiator. Fairness, I paid for that. I'm not getting this. Uncertainty, autonomy, I couldn't choose the car I wanted to choose. And relatedness, they don't care about me. Like they'll just take my money and they don't care. So all these things add up. So sometimes when you make yourself aware, even in such a situation, it's like, okay, it's not that important. Or it gives you the power to handle it, but depends on the situation.
Brilliant. I really like this, and I think I'm gonna steal this from you. Just kidding.
I told you,
But
it's
borrow.
like a
I'm
candle.
gonna
You,
take.
you, you can have it. It's like fire. It spreads free.
I'm gonna definitely take inspiration from it, and actually, not so much teach it or anything else, but actually just use it, because I really like the idea of giving people, not just giving people autonomy, but um, making sure this the first point, making sure that they feel respected.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you look for a way for how to do that, but there isn't like really an apparent way. But with the scarf method, it actually, the formula for it becomes more clear. You don't wonder anymore, like, how do I do this? What should I say? It's a little easier to follow. So on the fly, it's easier to implement.
And another just little tip you can do is if you use AI and you have your own AI, you can teach your AI the scarf model. And then once you give it to them once, if AI is helping you writing an email or any kind of conversation, like how did that go with scarf? And then they give you like, well, that email may hurt somebody's certainty, or that email can
Ah,
status. So
interesting.
sometimes AI can give you one of the things I love using AI is for I can ask, what's the tone of my email before I send it? And sometimes AI says, this email is petty. I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. I'm like, but now that I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, it is. I didn't mean to do it. So those are the fine tuning things that you could have AI. So hey, how does this email work with Scarf? And you'll get the feedback.
So you write petty emails. Interesting. I didn't know that about you.
I wrote one time a petty email that I've never sent because I had a client who disappointed me.
ChatGPT made you embarrassed in front of yourself.
I actually wasn't going to send that email. I was just very disappointed and I needed to write something.
Mm,
And then I asked ChatGPT, how did that sound? So I said, it's pity. I'm like, okay, I wasn't going to send it anyway because I usually remove myself from situation where somebody disappoints me like that. I just, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not going to continue.
yeah.
And I don't think I would have ever sent the email, but seeing that it's petty, it's like, hey, you did this and I did this for you and you did this. That
Right.
was
Right. Right.
sure don't want to send that email. I never sent any email. I just removed myself from the situation.
That's really great. What would be very interesting on a future call. We can use scarf for a specific scenario, because today there's a lot of uncertainty about people's financial and employment future due to AI automation and losing jobs to AI. And is just, some industries are relatively free. Like if you're a welder, you're going to be welding. But if
Well,
you're or
No.
not. At least in the
Yeah,
next
I
5 years, you'll be welding for at least 5 years. After that, we don't know. But in
you
some
have to
industries,
run a welding robot. You're
in
gonna
five
control.
years. But I think we are safe because it's still very expensive to make a welding robot.
Yeah.
But there are some industries which is just upside down. Creative industries, even what we're doing now, AI can maybe do better. So there's all these things, and people have one leg and one suitcase packed out of their current industries, right? They don't know what they're going to do next, but the suitcase is packed. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I got to start looking because my current industry is, you
You
know,
talk about underlying uncertainties, like a little hum and buzz that's there.
totally.
Sometimes you
And
come
then
into the room and you don't know why, and then the buzz stops because the air condition gets off. You're like, oh
yes,
wow, it's so much calmer now. So it's like the same analogy, like there's
and it
something.
affects everything. All the
Yeah,
decision making
yeah,
becomes stress-based decision making, not clear-minded, high-level decision making, and so on and
right.
so on. So maybe on the future call, because we're getting close to an hour, and we should respect your time, and
Thank
we'll
you.
do this again. But on the future call, we should brainstorm precisely how to use the SCARF method to not stress out about future employment or finances, but actually get our heads straight so we can still have clear headed decision making. Maybe
Right.
that would be a really applicable and useful.
Happy to do it.
All right. So thank you. This was really great. I learned a lot today. And if people want to visit your site, I'll put the link to your website in the description of this video. It's pointviewcoaching.com. Sometimes it's like a long spelling, point view error, spelling error, back, point
Yeah,
view. I've had that experience with your website, like a lot of 3 words. It's a lot of words, but it's pointviewcoaching.com is where you can learn more about Israel's work. And if you want to hire a coach, a consultant, somebody to help you and get you over the hump, he's really great, not only in strategy, but also in his not bad, bad side manner in terms of how he works is really an individual who is able to somehow bring anybody's confidence up higher, far higher than they were, makes people lifts people up. That's actually my experience with Jude, honestly, is whenever I talk to you about anything, um, you have this uplifting effect where afterwards I feel good about myself and whatever I'm working on.
I love it. I love it. It's intentional, and it goes both ways. So you always bring a smile to my face as well, and I always love talking to you and
You're the
brainstorming.
only one. You're the only one. But
Everybody,
thank you.
no, I'm not gonna let you. I'm not gonna let you bring you down. But it's all good, and maybe we can talk about that too, about confidence, about building true confidence. I'm giving actually a talk um next Wednesday to interns in one of New York City organizations about how to find your identity and voice in the workplace. So this is young, first generation college students who are interning in some of the biggest companies, and how do they find their own confidence and their own voice. So maybe one day we can do something about how to build true confidence and true voice, and I'm happy to do it. It's one of the steps I like to do with my clients.
Perfect. I think that would be a great topic actually because a lot of people need that. But for now, thank you again. And anybody listening, pointviewcoaching.com. Learn more about Israel's work.
Thank you,
See you
Alex.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.